Good morning. Sylvie Jean Baptiste. She was working as a nurse at the Mount Sinai Hospital in Brooklyn, New York. She was there as a person who's helped welcome people come in and greet them, get them registered, and then go check on people while they were having to wait for their 15 minutes after they'd received their shot. But it was early back in February, she met an interesting lady. She came in wearing a raspberry beret, and she had a bright blue walker. She went over to greet her to try to make sure that she wasn't feeling too anxious. And she tried to say, "Are you going to be okay? And it's got nothing to be afraid of." And immediately the lady responded, "I'm not nervous. I've been through far worse than this." That was an understatement. It turned out that her name was Myra Rosenblatt. She was 97 years old. She was a mother of 4, a grandmother of 8, and 4 great-grandchildren. She lived in the same apartment now in New York for the last 53 years. But she had been born in Poland. And she was there with her family when in 1939 the Nazis came. She was 15 years old. And they forced the family into a ghetto. She would be there for several years until finally in 1942 she was taken from her family and put into a labor camp. And the next 3 years would be incredibly difficult years. It was 1945. In the middle of winter, they had a midwinter death march where they took prisoners out and forced them on this march with no food, no water, no jackets, just to see who would die. And as they went through a forest, she took this enormous chance and she managed to escape. She hid in the forest. She would rummage through the bushes for any kind of berries she could eat. She would dig in the dirt and she would eat worms, anything she could find. She would dig a hole where she could sleep and be covered in snow for warmth. Finally, she made it to a dairy farm. There she passed herself off as just a person looking for a job, not as a Jew. She got hired on. She would work there for the next 6 months until the war ended. It was in 1945 when she managed to go back home in Poland, and when she did, there she met an old high school friend, a boyfriend. His name was Henry Rosenblatt. He had been sent to Auschwitz, but he had survived too. Now they were back together, having endured unspeakable things, and they fell in love, and they got married, and they immediately immigrated to the United States. They came and settled down, and there they would be happily married until he passed away in 2017. They lived so much life together there in New York. Now you had a pandemic. And when the pandemic came, suddenly Myra couldn't get out anymore, and she was such a social person. She was always speaking to groups about the Holocaust and how to overcome prejudice and hate. She felt it was important to tell the story and to try to get people not to hate, but to live together. But now she couldn't do it. But she didn't just sit around and waste that year of the pandemic. No, she and her daughter sat down to write her story. It was called Strength, My Memoir. She finished her book. It's on Amazon. Now she had the opportunity to get a vaccine that would keep her safe and mean freedom to get back out into life and to carry on telling her story. And that first time she went to go get her shot there early in February, it was crazy. So many people, everyone wanting to get the shot. Finally, 3 weeks later, it's her turn to go get the second shot. And lo and behold, on the day she's supposed to get the second shot, that's when New York City had 17 inches of snow. More snow than all of last year combined. But this was her day, a day of freedom. They hadn't come by to clean off the sidewalks yet. So Mary went out there and she climbed over a 4-foot snowbank to get to the car being driven by her granddaughter. She got to the hospital, and when she got out to go in, she was wading through water ankle deep. She got inside, and that's when she was met by this young lady who was the nurse, Sylvie Jean. And she sat down and she says, "No, I've been through far worse. Getting in here today in this kind of weather, no one was there. All the other New Yorkers stayed home because it was so bad." Not Myra. This was her day for freedom. She was anxious to see those grandkids and great-grandkids and to get out and to speak again. And so she was there. There was another nurse, a Nurse Ortiz, who came over and sat down. And she began to hear the stories that Myra had to tell, right along with Sylvie Jean. In the end, there were so many tears. They were so moved. They immediately went on Amazon and bought her book. At the end of that week, it was Nurse Ortiz who went by her house to have her autograph it. No, it was Sylvie Jean who said, being with Myra, it gave us perspective. It gave us perspective that if you have faith and you have strength, you can endure anything. You can make it. And how true that is. Sometimes right now, all we need is a little perspective. We're coming to the end. And with faith and determination, there isn't anything that we can't do. She said it right. I couldn't say it better myself. Go out and have a great day.